Great. So, Mr. Kotyka, thanks for being with us today. I'll start with a simple question. What do you think events such as Together Climate Summit can contribute to the debate on the energy transition in Poland?
Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting me and for your interest in this climate summit. I think it's an extremely important and interesting moment in Polish history. And when you relate it to a climate summit, I cannot not mention COP24 in Katowice, which I think had an extremely important effect on accelerating transition on Polish side. And since 2 years, as we have seen the creation of Ministry of Climate and Environment, which I had the honor to lead. But we see a lot of changes in the physical world, if I may say. And for example, despite COVID, Poland has engaged in extremely ambitious action of energy efficiency, thermomodernization, and installation of photovoltaic panels on rooftops of Polish houses. So when in December 2015 we had 4,000 prosumers, we celebrated in December 2020, 5 years later, 457,000 prosumers, so 100 times more. 250,000 families chose only in the 2020 to equip their rooftop with a PV panel. We see a real revolution in terms of how my fellow compatriots, citizens are looking at the challenges linked with clean air, but also with climate change. 78% of Poles right now consider that protecting the climate is extremely important, and they are willing to participate. Of course, this is very much due to the raising awareness of the challenges since COP24. This is due also to better and better economic situation of Polish households despite COVID. And we can engage in this extremely complex process for a country which has the longest road to go in terms of getting to climate neutrality. But we started and we really engaged extremely dynamically.
You alluded to this, the Polish energy mix is largely based on coal at the moment. In which direction do you want to go in the next 10 to 20 years in order to achieve the EU's climate goals?
We have adopted on the 2nd of February a new energy policy by the Council of Ministers, and this provides with an unprecedented change in Polish energy system. We had in 2019 75% share of coal in our energy mix, and this has been in large part inherited after the communist time, as we started in 1989 with nearly 100% of carbon monoculture. It's a unique case in Europe, but also one of the unique cases in the world where you have such a dependence on one single fuel, which appeared to be extremely challenging in terms of climate change for a country. So we started in an extremely complex situation. But as I said, right now things are accelerating and are changing. In the new energy plan, we foresee to decrease this share to up to 11% in 2040. That will be the highest pace of decreasing the participation of coal in the energy mix among all other big economies. Poland is a big country of 40 million people. It's a flat country, so we do not have that much potential for hydro energy. It's a country which historically suffered from its dependence from eastern neighbor, and this dependence created somehow a question mark related to switching to gas. But right now we have a plan, and this plan foresees that within the next 20 years we will build a new zero-emission system which will be of the size, of the magnitude of the existing conventional system. And this will be created, this will be based on three pillars. First of all, wind offshore. Polish seashore, Baltic seashore, has the highest potential to install wind offshore. And we have adopted a law in the beginning of January this year, which foresees that by 2030 we will have 5,900 megawatts of wind offshore, and by 2040 between 8 to 11,000 megawatts of wind offshore. The second pillar is nuclear energy, and we aim to build 6 nuclear power units by 2043, and this will help to stabilize the energy production, especially to be able to complement the lignite production, which will be decreasing very much. And thirdly, lastly, but this is what I related at the beginning to, this is this democratic bottom-up revolution which is happening right now in Poland in terms of renewables energy. It's not only photovoltaics, but soon we want to make it a biogas, also hydro, small hydro, geothermic revolution, which is really making a change in Poland. Poland last year has been 4th country within the European Union in terms of photovoltaic capacities, and we still continue record by record, month by month. So this democratic bottom-up revolution, which is making Poles to change and to switch to more ecological means to produce energy and heat, will lead ultimately to millions of houses equipped with new ecological means of production of energy. We foresee by 2030 at least 1 million of such prosumers. But it's not only limited to energy system. We also have ambitious plans, and we already deliver on the side of electric mobility and switching combustion engines, especially in the public transport, to zero-emission energy, to zero-emission buses. And by 2025, the energy policy that we have adopted foresees that all major cities will have to buy only zero-emission buses, so either hydrogen or electric. This strategy will be very much also benefiting from recovery and resilience mechanism, because this is an extremely investment-intensive revolution. And Poland, which is a country of economic success, still is far behind in terms of GDP per capita to its richer Western counterparts. So when you compare an average Pole earning 1,100 euro with an average German earning 2,500, 2,700 euro, then they are confronted with the same cost of an electric vehicle or a photovoltaic panel. So this is why we need this investment stimulus. We need solidarity, European solidarity, so that we will be able to catch up, but also with this to rebuild Polish energy system and also become more climate and environmental friendly.
You mentioned this. The coal phase out in Poland implies a transformation of the economy. How can these changes be conducted in a way that is fair for the workers involved, for the industries involved, who will be impacted the most?
Well, changes in Poland are happening once Poles are convinced for something, it's going extremely quickly. and we have a very big ability to adapt and still a lot of flexibility in the economy, which has been proved during the COVID time in terms of how economy and employment responded to an extreme challenge which was raised by COVID. But this has a price. I mean, the changes which are happening in Poland are less spectacular. It takes time, but we also devote this time and we spend this time to negotiate, to discuss, to bring a compromise to the table. And this strategy is paying off. Yesterday, on the 22nd of April, we had an extremely important day here in Poland because a preliminary deal has been struck between the government side led by Ministry of State Assets and trade unions, mining trade unions, phasing out coal by 2049. Before this symbolic target of reaching climate neutrality by a European Union. So we want to bring our best efforts, our loyal, intensive efforts and energy to the European target. And this implies that we do it in line with the principles of just transition, respecting people and looking at this climate challenge with the eyes of ordinary people, not only miners in Silesia, but also taxpayers, but also people who are suffering from transport exclusion. People who have to heat their houses. In Poland, 60% of energy bill is being paid for heating houses. This is the particularity of our geographical situation. So we need to take everything on board, and we need to make sure that nobody is left behind, and that during this unprecedented change, which is foreseen by the government, nobody will increase its vulnerability, and that it will not be done at the expenses of the most vulnerable groups nor regions. So this is why also we want to create alternative sources of employment. This is why investments with recovery and resilience are done also in order to stimulate industries which can play a role of alternative places, jobs for people who will be gradually losing jobs in fossil fuel dependent regions. This is a project which needs to be situated in time, 20 years time, that's the right perspective for this. It needs resources, financial resources, and it needs technologies. It is aligned, and we are moving fast.
As you know, the European Commission in Brussels is preparing a reform of the carbon market, the emissions trading scheme, which is expected to be published in June. What kind of reforms regarding the carbon market rules would be the most appropriate and effective from the point of view of Poland?
Well, we have to take into account the fact that we have richer and poorer countries within the European Union, and that for some of them a high carbon price would not be enough. They will ask for more because their economy and wealth of their citizens allow it. For some others, it might be having the adverse effect. High ETS prices are putting a lot of energy companies in an unsustainable situation in which they cannot have any resources to invest in new sources of production of electricity. So they are stuck with their existing assets. On the other side, rising ETS prices is a risk to induce energy poverty, and that is a concern all across Europe. So I think we have to strike a right balance between sending signals to the industry and making sure that their change is feasible also in terms of investment capacities, and that during the time when the new investments will not yet be in place, so the new zero emission or low emission energy mix will not be completely in place, we will be able to protect the most vulnerable parts of the population. So this is in this spirit that we have to approach the ETS reform. We have to make sure that no unsustainable burden is put on the shoulders of the most vulnerable fringes of our populations and regions. So this concerns today energy prices, but we should also ask ourselves a question whether we think that the same carbon price should be put on the shoulders of people in, let's say, Hamburg and Rzeszów, Sofia and Paris, Lisbon and Vilnius, if we know that they are confronted with very different prices for their buildings and very different ability to pay for thermomodernization, for example. The same concerns the automotive industry. So we should make sure that it is done in a fair manner.
Thank you very much, Minister, for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.